Welcome back to the Lemon Factor. I'm Chad, and in today's video we are talking about one of our two project cars, the 2019 Honda Accord 2.0 Touring. A couple weeks ago I published a video in which I was certain that I probably had blown our stock, our OEM 2.0 Turbo. Through all of the testing, whether it's on the dyno, quarter mile, 0 to 60 over the past couple of years, I thought that I just put too much pressure on the turbo, especially considering that I'm at high altitude. My turbo has to work harder at higher altitude. It has to compensate for a loss of about 2 to 3 psi. So with that additional strain on the turbo, and without knowing the OEM turbo specs or looking at a compressor map, I was afraid that I was working the turbo too hard, that I was passing its limits, and that the turbo had blown. I am surprised by the type of response that I got, both some of you insisting that of course I blew my turbo, and others insisting, no, it's just the radiator fan. In this video, I'm gonna go through what I found out about our OEM turbo. Is it blown? Is it not? I'm also gonna give a little bit of information about what you can look out for if you suspect a blown turbo on your car. If you're interested in hearing more, then stay tuned. Let's go through some of the symptoms of a blown turbo, or a turbo that is on its way out. So the first thing is, you'd most likely see a check engine light as a result of a blown turbo, or like I said, a turbo that's going. Second, probably smoke coming out of the exhaust, loss of power, loss of boost, so either no boost or limiting the boost, struggle in acceleration or maintaining speeds, and noise. Now that's a tricky one, right? Because that's what I experienced. And in general, turbos are noisy. So I'd say a different noise than what you're used to. So let's think about some of those. I didn't experience the loss of boost or the loss of power or the inability to maintain speeds. But it's because as soon as I heard the noise and as it grew, I wasn't pushing the car. I wasn't going into boost. I was afraid that I was gonna destroy the turbo, and at times you don't just destroy the turbo, it can shoot some of the pieces of the wheel into the intercooler. God forbid it reaches your engine. You could do a lot more damage. So I wasn't pushing the car to find out, especially considering I knew that I was upgrading the turbo. The only sign that I had was the noise. And like I said, the noise did progressively get worse. And my thought was that it was the noise from the turbine rubbing up against the flute or the snail or the housing, whatever you want to call it, and it had play in the shaft. And that is definitely possible. If I wasn't going to change out the turbo, if I wasn't going to upgrade, what are some of the things that I could have done? I could have removed the air intake and the air inlet and taken a look at the compressor wheel, see if there's any damage on the blades, but for my case, see if there's any play in the shaft. If I did that and there was no play, it probably would have spurred me to think twice and consider the alternatives. And the alternative is what a lot of you already mentioned in the comments of the last video, the radiator fan. I went out, I checked it, I spun the radiator fan. Passenger side radiator fan was making the noise. So as I turn off the car, it's slowly, the fan is spinning down, going slower, it's making the noise. So that was an easy fix. However, when I'm driving the car with decent amount of throttle pressure, I notice a resonance, something vibrating. And as I give it more gas, it becomes more pronounced. And when I let off, it kind of goes away. And I don't think it has affected the driving. I think it's more of the resonance, the noise that I'm hearing. So when some of you said, hey, it's the radiator, go check it out, be done with it. Yes, I could have done that, but I also had the noise that I needed to diagnose. So what's happening with that noise? I still have it. And we've swapped out the turbo. We now have the new 271 Accord FK8 Hybrid Turbo on our car. Radiator noise is gone, but I still have the resonance. So at least that noise is not related to a turbo, it's something else. I'm gonna have to figure it out. I have some ideas, I'll go chase that down. With that said, I wanted to take a look at the turbine blades and the compressor blades, see if there's any damage. Also, while I'm taking a look at the blades, I wanted to see if there was any shaft play. That was my biggest concern, and that's what I thought the problem was. So I've taken some measurements of the compressor wheel and the turbine wheel. I'll put them up here on the screen. These are just rough estimates, and it is indicative of how small this turbo is. Not a surprise, all that torque is readily available between, 2,000 to 3,000 RPM. I'm really surprised how much horsepower and torque this tiny turbo can produce. So we have the compressor wheel, hopefully you can see that. And let's take a look inside to see if there's damage on the blades. Let's spin it, see if it freely spins and if we hear any noise. I'm not noticing any rubbing against the sidewall. I'm not noticing any noises coming from it. It seems to spin very freely. So on the compressor side, I think we're doing good. Let's take a look on the turbine side. We don't have any damage to the turbine blades. Everything looks good. All the abuse I've put this under and it's still running strong. I did an oil change right before installing the Accord Turbo, and I sent off a sample of the oil to be tested. One of the potential causes of turbo failure is inadequate oil, meaning the wrong weight, the wrong type, not enough, you're starving it. So my thought is sending it off to Blackstone Labs, like I have done in the past, to get it tested. I'll have the results to see if my oil was still healthy, or after all those hard miles that I've put on the car, which when I drive it normally, it's not hard, but when I'm on the dyno and testing it, yes, of course it's hard miles. If all those miles resulted in premature aging, wear of the oil, in which case it would signify that maybe I need to change the oil more frequently or put a different type of oil in the car. The Honda Accord 2.0 OEM Turbo is pretty stout. It is made to last. After all that hammering I've put on it and at high altitude, it was still running strong. It still looks good. No damage whatsoever. Some of you were certain that I damaged the turbo because I've beaten on it. It's still healthy, it's still running pretty strong. For others, you knew that it wasn't the turbo and you were right. All that said, I think we're done for today. Thank you very much for joining, and until next time.